This is Bob Serling for 10-Minute Tips for Maximum Health, and today I'm talking with Dr. Nalini Chilkov. Dr. Chilkov is the founder of IntegrativeCancerAnswers.com and the author of the best-selling book, 32 Ways to Outsmart Cancer. She's a leading-edge authority on integrative cancer care, immune enhancement, optimal nutrition, and wellness medicine. Her Outsmart Cancer programs are recognized as the most comprehensive, science-based, safe, natural programs for supporting cancer patients, cancer survivors, and those who do not want to get cancer, and helping them get well, stay well, and live well beyond cancer. So I'm very pleased to have Dr. Chilkov share her 30 years of experience with us today. Welcome, Nalini.
Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for being with us. So my question for you is, what is the single best thing you'd recommend people do to prevent cancer?
Well, if I had to pick just one thing that almost anybody could implement, I'd just say think color and eat the rainbow. Try to eat a broad spectrum of colors from fruits and vegetables and also from herbs and spices so that you can actually turn genes on and off.
So I think most people are familiar with the fruits and vegetables, but when you talk about herbs and spices, which specific herbs and spices would you recommend?
Well, first of all, you can't talk about cancer without talking about curcumin, which comes from the beautiful golden root from turmeric. So you can certainly add turmeric to your diet, and this is rich in curcuminoids, which actually interact with over 100 different genes, turning off inflammation, turning off cancer genes, turning on protective genes. It's one of the most powerful spices, and you can use it every day quite safely. So if you think about it, this could be a blockbuster drug if it did all these things and was safe to use long term.
I see. Now, in addition to the cruciferous vegetables, I think we've all heard how valuable those are. Are there any other specific categories of vegetables or fruits that are that have cancer preventative powers?
Yes, there really are a handful of fruits. If you think of all the berries, they are rich in a very broad spectrum of plant chemicals, quercetin, phytophenols, flavonoids, and all of these, again, interact with different genes, are super antioxidants, so prevent your DNA from being damaged also. And also these will protect your blood vessels and your brain. So in a longevity plan, we want to have lots of super antioxidants and a broad variety of color. Blueberries contain pterostilbene, which are extremely protective both to the brain and to the DNA. Anytime we protect our DNA, we're going to be lowering our risk of cancer. Red and purple grapes also are rich in resveratrol, which is one of the few plant chemicals that's actually been studied and known to actually increase longevity. It has a very powerful cholesterol lowering effect as well, but it's one of the most DNA protective plant chemicals that we know.
Well, that's great. You know, there are a lot of myths surrounding cancer, and I wonder if you could just comment on what some of the most prevalent myths are and what the truth about those myths may be.
Well, I think that in conventional oncology, one of the myths is it doesn't matter what you eat. You could eat any diet you want. You'll see people in oncology offices receiving their chemotherapy with bowls of candy in front of them. And so that's one of the great myths. And it's unfortunate because food is so powerful in creating an environment for your cells that would be inhospitable to the growth and development of cancer. So when we talk about creating a body where cancer cannot thrive, we're talking about creating a terrain or an environment that will send signals to turn on these protective genes and turn off inflammation. In the same way you think about building soil for a garden. We want to grow healthy plants, not weeds. We want the plants to be disease resistant. So similarly, we want to create a soil or a terrain in our own bodies that creates an environment that doesn't support cancer.
Well, that's a great analogy. It makes it really easy to understand. How about survival rates? How have they changed over, say, the past 10 to 20 years?
Well, it's really bad news, actually. In the last 50 years, survival rates haven't changed very much. And that, what we mean is 5-year survival rates. We certainly catch a lot of cancers earlier because we have better diagnosis, but we actually don't have better treatment.
Hmm. What about from the preventative standpoint? It seems we have much better preventative methods, such as many of the things you recommended, but it's fairly disheartening. I just read a study today that said 60% of Americans are either obese or morbidly obese. So, what do you think might be done to help people recognize the value of all the preventative measures that are available?
Well, first, I want to make a comment about the diabetes epidemic because diabetics have a 40% greater chance of getting cancer in the first place because high blood sugar and high insulin are drivers of cancer. And if you're a diabetic and you've had cancer, you have a 50% higher rate of having a recurrence. If you're obese, you have a 50% higher rate of getting cancer. So this epidemic in America is driving not only cardiovascular disease, heart disease, but also driving cancer. And it's interesting. The government's the federal report on environment, toxins, and cancer came out in 2009, showing that the impact of environmental chemicals is one of the drivers of cancer. It seems obvious to us in our community, but most people don't realize that eating foods laden with pesticides, using things like Roundup, an herbicide in your garden, are actually exposing you in your home environment to toxic chemicals. So it's really an education issue, but it's also a socioeconomic issue because if you don't feel you can afford to buy organic food, then you buy fast food that's filled with chemicals.
hmm Yeah, I agree, but I also see. I mean, I live in what's considered to be a fairly affluent area, and I can tell you that the drive-through lines at In-N-Out and McDonald's and all of them seem to be miles long around lunchtime and early in the morning. So I think everybody really needs to educate themselves and then take action on that education.
Absolutely. So I try to be really pragmatic and give people some of the basic things that you can do whether you have money or not. So one of those is just to eat more color, which we're talking about here. Some people don't realize that only 5 days a week, a half-hour walk actually dramatically decreases your risk of cancer. Getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep every night improves immunity, decreases risk of cancer. Just relaxing increases your natural killer cells, which are the cells that go after cancer cells. So a little meditation, a little relaxation, a walk in nature. These things have a huge impact, and these are things that anyone can do.
Well, that's great. And, this has just been packed with information, and I know there's a lot more you have to offer. So how do people go about finding out more about you and what you do?
My website is integrativecanteranswers.com, and we actually have some gifts for your community. So if you go to integrativecanteranswers.com/gifts, we have some great shopping lists and recipes and how to make your home a more non-toxic, safe place. And we'd like to share that with everyone. And there's lots of free information and free resources there.
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you very much for that. And thanks again for taking time today to talk with me.
I'm delighted to be part of your series. Thank you.